All right, we've been having a little fun lately. We are just getting back from the biggest Tekken tournament in the world, where I proved to the world, hopefully, I really like that when it comes to Tekken. Like anybody else that's not a pro, but any pros out there, fuck it. Anybody that's froggy, you won't smoke, come holler at your boy. Unfortunately, some other really important things happened while I was in Vegas whooping ass, and we got to talk about that today. So unless you're completely disengaged from American politics, which lucky you, then of course you know that sitting American President Joe Biden made history as the first president in modern history to not seek a second term, ending his bid after an immense shift in popularity over the last 8 or so months. And trust me, he wasn't very popular the prior 3 years either. But I have to say, his decision to side with Israel and consistently provide the nation of Israel with millions in aid as they reduce Palestine to rubble proved to be unpopular, not just with far left-leaning folks like myself, but even moderate Democrats after a certain point. It is a very unpopular principle that he's upheld, that he will be remembered for. And once it became clear that any semblance of defending themselves was no longer a plausible excuse for Israel, that's kind of how it went down. I'm pulling punches and mincing words here for a reason. If you know, you know. I think most of y'all know. And if it wasn't that specific issue that turned people off, it was definitely Biden's debate performance a few weeks ago, in which he came off unintelligible, incoherent, and senile, as well as out of touch, at one point arguing with fellow octogenarian buffoon Donald Trump about who was better at golf.
And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
And while conservatives do not and have not ever really cared about how they maintain power in government, liberals and moderates were making it very clear to the Democratic Party that they were deeply unsatisfied with Joe Biden as their candidate, and that it would likely lose them the election if something wasn't done. So on July 21st, 2024, something was done. Joe Biden announced his intention to end his campaign and immediately endorsed Kamala Harris, his vice president, who then quickly shored up a huge amount of support, both politically, but also, I would say, culturally, from liberals and Democrats, and including some, I would say, leftists, as well as getting pledges of enough delegates within the Democratic Party to become the presumptive nominee for president of the United States for the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris will get the opportunity to make history again, going from being the first woman and black woman to be vice president to then be the first woman and black woman to be president. And I have a lot of thoughts, as this is going to be a complex moment in politics going forward. And because things are all over the place, I tried to congeal them into 3 main takeaways that I think about Kamala Harris running for president right now, at least. Number 1, this may be an embarrassing thing that people clip 6 or so months from now, but Kamala Harris is going to win. This may surprise some of you. I know my friend and colleague Olay said the exact opposite, and her take and opinion is not to be disrespected or invalidated. I feel like Olay isn't in the Black Excellence Brunch crowd like I am. Not saying that I can't be wrong, because of course I am and have been many times. But for my money, Kamala Harris will be the next president for a few reasons. For one, I wasn't so convinced that Joe Biden was going to lose either, despite everything. A big thing that I point out to people whenever I say that and they look at me like something's wrong with me is that if you look at the 2020 race and how it broke down in terms of certain racial groups and who they voted for, things tell a different story than we often tend to present when we're talking about Donald Trump and his presidency. What I'm getting at is a question: how did white people, women, and minorities vote in 2020 compared to 2016 when Donald Trump won? Believe it or not, Donald Trump gained in every single group of voters in 2020. Black men and black women, white women and other minority groups, etc. But there was one group he lost points with, and that's with white men. In 2016, Donald Trump got 62% of the white male vote, but in 2020, he got only 57%. And this 5% decrease probably represents a much larger number than all of those other increases combined, just due to the sheer size of the white male population. Now, you may say that, well, Joe Biden is a white man and Kamala Harris is not. And this is true. Further, white women. We'll come back to that. But I do believe that most normal people don't really want a Donald Trump second term. And despite the way the world is going and what normal counts as to a lot of people, I think most people prefer things to be less polarizing than Donald Trump has always been. I think we often underestimate just how much Hillary Clinton has been hated and how the Republican Party had been campaigning against Hillary Clinton for essentially like 25 years by the time she ran for president. So I just generally didn't see how Donald Trump could win the presidency against almost anybody. As strong as racism and sexism and all the other isms are in this country, white people in particular outside of rural areas find Trump repulsive. This is why Trump only holds rallies in places where you can buy an AR-15 at Walmart and never in major population centers. I think if Kamala picks a milquetoast straight white man as her running mate, as one of my peers, Big Joe, said, one of these guys straight out of central casting, much like Obama did with Joe Biden, then she will easily shore up the liberal vote. Her cop background will play well with most normal folks. And then we just have the racists and misogynists to worry about. And they were most likely Republicans to the core anyway. She already raised like $80 million in one day for a reason. And I predict something kind of like how Obama was in 2012, not 2008, because that will never be repeated. But 2012 Obama is definitely a plausible outcome from my perspective. And that is partly because of the second major thought I have. 2, the Black Excellence Brunch crowd is about to go ham. Do y'all still say go ham? Crash out? Is that the Black Excellence Brunch crowd is about to crash out? Can we go back to going ham? I'm old. Y'all made fun of all my selfies. Y'all don't love me. I have come to call a certain population of pro-black, but also very pro-capitalism and pro-respectability politics, pro-status quo black folks with a little money and education as the Black Excellence Brunch crowd. Think LLC Motivation Instagram, Earn Your Leisure podcast, white parties, hookah lounges with grass walls, Atlanta. I got this term from Think Peace Tribe's short film, Black Excellence Brunch, which you should all go watch. And you should also watch Think Peace Tribe anyway, bro. It's amazing. Anyway, Kamala is emblematic of what Black excellence is in America. And I don't mean this in a good way, because I don't believe in Black excellence as a positive concept. She is an HBCU grad with significant political ambitions and did what it took to realize those ambitions, even if it meant trampling over her own people on the way to the top, while also presenting to the world as if her actions were in service to those people. To me, that's what Black excellence really is under capitalism and white supremacy. Black elites and a few petite bourgeois Negroes, people who have access to administrative white power centers and make themselves rich and powerful among black people, usually by managing the rest of the niggas, whether it be putting them in jail or creating imaginary banks for us to put our money in, thinking we're using a black bank, but it's really a white bank with a red, black, and green sticker on it. I talked about all this in depth in my Truth About Black Conservatives videos. You should check them out for a full explanation. So you're probably hearing me say this and you're probably saying, well, FD just hates black elites and black high achievers and black people with money and whatnot. And no, that's not true or accurate. I don't hate anyone. I don't hate a lot of people. And I don't think too many people are beyond the pale or trying to engage with or even build with if certain conflicts and issues could be ironed out. I'll be critical, but that doesn't mean that said criticism is permanent. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because I am very much a product of the Black Excellence Brunch crowd. I am a well-paid HBCU grad living in Atlanta. The call is coming from inside the room. I'd be a complete hypocrite to act like I'm above the same criticism I'm putting out here. I think about leftist figures like No Name, who was once dragged on Twitter for saying that we need capitalism, and years later she's one of the most prominent black leftist voices out there. And while I don't have a lot of hope for pulling Kamala over to the left, maybe it's possible for Killer Mike, who I bet ain't even gonna support Kamala though. Like, y'all watch Killer Mike is real quiet during all of this. It's gonna be interesting. But anyway, we gonna see. Back to the topic. This is important because if you're black and you're watching me, you're either similar to me and in recovery from the Black excellence grift, or you're very much out of that grift and not at all tolerant of the Van Joneses of the world who are about to lose their shit over Kamala for the next few months. I'm talking about the divine non-establishment entities, tons of black influencers and notable figures. Beyonce, I heard, have already started to show out. There was a call of 44,000 black women that raised over $1 million in one night for Kamala. And believe it or not, because some of y'all still struggle with certain biases, the same thing happened with black men a day later. Actually, let's get into that real quick. There are going to be a bunch of articles about how black men are not going to support Kamala Harris for president because we're just so patriarchal and desiring of our own version of white supremacy. And blah, 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 blah. And while like I've talked at length before about how some of that is definitely true for black men, I will say again for the 100th time, black men have never been significant supporters of the Republican Party. This is historically true, even as Democrats have given us shit candidates like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Black men are the most liberal voting bloc of men in America by a wide margin, just like black women. When Stacey Abrams ran for governor in Georgia in 2020, she got more black male votes than any other Democratic candidate for any office in the country. And despite this, I guarantee you will see countless news articles and think pieces and videos and CNN segments trying to say the opposite. Thankfully, I do see a lot more pushback on this than I have in recent years. Still, be prepared to push back on it. Try to be gentle because every time this comes up, you get well-wishing regular people that just want to dispel this nonsense. And then you get them niggas. And by them niggas, I mean black conservatives overall. Republican parties are about to bring Candace Owens out like Stone Cold Steve Austin with a steel chair. She is going to be everywhere saying the most misogynistic, anti-black shit possible because this is her time. This is her moment. But along with her, you're also going to see the activation of the black manosphere because, you know, they've had a rough time since Kevin Samuels died. They haven't had any reason to garner a lot of attention. And the vast majority of the black manosphere is conservative. So best believe one or two of them is looking for their opportunity to find a way into a mainstream platform to, you know, get their bags off. But we shall see. Either way, I just wanted to be clear. Black men in the Black Excellence Brunch crowd will be just as happy to vote for Kamala as their female counterparts. Now, who I am worried about is white women. White women are the only population that on one end considers themselves an oppressed or special interest group that still consistently sides with Republicans, although by small margins. Part of me wants to think that lessons were learned in 2016, as well as recently with the abortion ban. But it's hard for me not to think that a significant portion of white women will consider that the idea of a black woman being president before a white woman will just stay home or vote the other way. We shall see. White women who I love, you know, I love y'all. Get the word out. Start checking your friends now so that they prepared to do the right thing in November. But getting back on topic, Kamala presents a lot of interesting conversations to the Black Excellence Brunch crowd. For one, she's biracial, but without a white parent. Kamala's father is Caribbean and her mother is South Asian. She looks and presents black. She went to an HBCU, so only goofies would not refer to her and see her as black, but goofies do exist and often have YouTube channels. Further, you can't deny that her lighter skin will have been of great benefit to her throughout her career. She is also childless and married to a white man, to whom she is a stepmother to 2 adult children, one of which I'm pretty sure is gender non-conforming at a minimum, but you know, that's hearsay. Now, in the Black Excellence Brunch crowd, all of this isn't that odd. A lot of us have an auntie just like Kamala, but it does create some distance in comparison to, say, a Michelle Obama and how the black community has still, despite our changes in opinions about the Obamas over the years, greatly supported Michelle Obama. There's a really popular TikToker I enjoy called Machiavelli, who had a useful take on how further left black folks should probably respond to Kamala at this point in time.
She did exactly what I would expect a respectability politics black person who is a prosecutor, who has political aspirations. She moved exactly how you would move in that situation. And I hate to break it to y'all, the way you move in that situation, especially if you want to get in politics, politicking, you can't be for. And what's so crazy is y'all love to light Obama up on this app every day and tell us how he really wasn't shit. So I'm confused as to why we act like, I get it. I really do get it. Like we gotta get in office. But y'all ain't finna jump me.
And that's kind of where I'm gonna be for a bit. I lived through Obama. Like many black Americans my age, when Obama became president in 2008, I cried. And when I said that in front of Think Peace Tribe and Andrewism, who are 22 and 24 respectively, they laughed in my face in public. The youth, the Gen Zs, boy, they just heartless. I know it sounds cringe. I know it's hard to believe. You had to have been there. I made 2 whole videos about it. Not a lot of people watch those videos, but go watch them for more on that. But I bring that up because you couldn't have told me nothing negative about Barack Obama in at least the first 2 years into his presidency. And it's only in the last few years of his second term that I think I and many others around my age fully kind of started to recognize the complexity of the problem that was Barack Obama. And I think it's going to be useful for black folks on the left to have that hindsight to learn from the mistakes that others presented to us when they were trying to get us to see what the problem was. Simply put, we are not about to convince the Black Excellence Brunch crowd right now that Kamala Harris ski wing in the White House is bad. That image to them is going to be too iconic to make that argument. They're going to be too turned, and anything negative we say will fall on deaf ears right now. And let's just be clear. Leftists are not just a minority political ideology, which we are, but we're also know-it-all, killjoy assholes. It's just the truth. I need all of us to recognize that more fully and move with that in mind more efficiently. I understand why we're like this, but it's just not optimal. And we should be making attempts to shift our tone as the political moment develops. I believe there is great potential for massive political education and shifts in ideology for black people under a Kamala Harris presidency, unlike when Obama was here, because we have Obama to look at in retrospect. Being able to watch Kamala do exactly what Obama did will be a great teachable moment for that Black Excellence Brunch crowd. But we are not going to be able to do that if we're not in community with them, not in dialogue with them. It's going to require a lot of patience that may not be for you, but will be for others, myself included. It's a very good time to start planning out now how to hopefully be in a very different place politically and policy-wise 4 years from now. But it's going to have to start with holding your tongue a bit as your peers get really, really, really excited about putting a cop in the presidency, because Black excellence, y'all. Black excellence. Remember Huey in the Dick Riding Obama episode of the Boondocks? When I go back and watch that video, it's funny and prescient as it is, it's also the wrong thing. At the end of the day, Huey from the Boondocks was just happy that he was right to an extent, and he didn't want to do anything else. And that's doomerism, and doomerism is cringe. So we're not going to do that. We are going to do what we can. I don't know what that is yet. I'm talking to people behind the scenes. I'm definitely working on developing some things to see what it is I could be doing that's better and different. But what I won't be doing is just being okay with not being engaged at all. I think that's a cop-out. I built this platform based on politics to a great extent. I have to continue using it for that. And I think that's true for all of us making content, but also all of you watching me that do recognize the problem of a Kamala Harris. This is not the time to give up on your people. They need you the most right now. And this brings me to my last thought, which is what will you do and what should you do? I tend to hate making electoral content and any type of discourse around it, because the hyper focuses a lot of energy and attention on something that in the grand scheme of things doesn't really mean a ton for what's actually happening in our world. But it's also hard to actually take any type of real action when you're isolated, exhausted, and alienated by capitalistic forces of life. Arguing about who to vote for or why you should vote in the first place is easier, more tangible, and gives you a much bigger dopamine hit. And that's cringe. I'll just say this. If you weren't going to vote for Joe Biden, you probably shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris for those exact same reasons. I don't expect, although I guess I'm hearing rumblings of some slight differences, I don't expect, and you shouldn't expect, there to be much difference in the way their presidencies play out. At the same time, if you're planning to hold your nose and vote for Joe Biden, it should be a lot less odious for you to do it for Kamala Harris. You could look at Joe stepping down as a win on some level that is definitely partially a result of the intense resistance that many leftists and many liberals showed towards his presidency. But understand, Kamala is replacing Joe so easily because she will carry on pretty much the exact same political agenda, just in a different form. It's going to be black faces in high places all over again. I won't judge you either way, because I think all of this fighting is cringe. I'd rather argue about which Tekken character needs to be nerfed. It's Dragunov. Fight me about it. Just don't fight me with Dragunov. And anyway, I'm moving to Canada. Fuck all this shit. Khadijah, CJ, Dan Olsen's, anybody that fucks with me in America's hat, holla at me when I get there, because it's a wrap here. It's a wrap. The candidacy of Kamala Harris is probably one of the biggest stories in politics going forward, along with the reasons and processes that led to Biden stepping down. And of course, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump before that. And if you're like me, you've watched your fair share of news coverage on these topics and have found yourself switching from CNN to Fox News at times just to see how different groups are talking to different audiences about these stories. However, this isn't so easy on my social media feeds. The way that social media works, I am pretty much locked into whatever ideological framing that I most align with. And this is due to how social media works. Because everything from Google to Twitter to Facebook to YouTube works off AI algorithms, machines choose what news they think you want, and they choose it based on your search history, the region you're from, all kinds of other factors that are out of your control. Traditional news media doesn't want you to be informed, it really just wants you to be entertained and engaged. And that's why I'm excited to share a solution to that with this video sponsor, Ground News. Ground News is an independent news aggregation app that is specifically designed to make sure you're never lacking when it comes to knowing what's going on. They do this by not just reporting the news and offering thousands of news articles organized by topic and genre from all over the web, but they also offer important context to every story, political bias, factuality, ownership, and the ability to easily compare headlines. For example, here's a story on the sudden movement in the Republican Party to have President Biden officially resign from office now that he's renouncing his candidacy for president. When you look at the over 100 sources where this article is being published, you see that very few of them are left-leaning, likely because this is your typical grandstanding activity from Republicans to distract from their lack of an actual political agenda. And when we look at headlines, we can easily pinpoint just how different this reporting can be. On the right, the New York Post calls Biden incompetent and that he puts the world in grave danger, while Fox News opens their headline with "not fit to serve." Meanwhile, on the left, political focuses on the Democrats' response to these demands, while Axios frames these demands as a pile-on. Probably my favorite feature is their blind spot feed, which shows you stories that are underreported by one side of the political aisle or the other. So this isn't some Twitter pundit twisting up a story. This isn't fake news generated by AI bots on Facebook. This is really the key to keeping up with the news while keeping out the nonsense. Ground News provide all the tools you need to be an informed thinker, and I constantly work with them because I think they're truly useful. And because of that, I can offer you 40% off their Vantage subscription, which gives you unlimited access to all of their amazing features by going to ground.news/signify B-sides or clicking the link in the description. So subscribe today and help support an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent. I'm FD Signifier, and this has been Light Work.